just kick it off like this right here in the beginning start of this live, bro. New York Knicks, y'all need to go ahead and hurry up and win this championship, man. You understand me? This is no way to carry on the act. I'm gonna go ahead and say it, and I'm gonna keep saying it. I know I talked about this yesterday, but we're gonna have to go back over this again. You understand me? Cause this shit is real wild and crazy. I ain't gonna hold you. Yes, yes. Who is that, man? In the building. In the building. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We finna kick it off, man. Yeah, man. I'm gonna need y'all to. I want y'all to check this shit out with me, man. Real spill, real spill. All the way from 1984, straight like that. Mm. Mm. Yes, sir. Great. What up? 8876. What's going on, partner? Things going like, yes, sir. See, this is the type of shit I'm talking. This is what I'm talking about, you guys. You.
Shocking footage has just surfaced showing Knicks fans launching a full-scale attack on Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs. And what is being described by people who were present on the streets of New York City is something that goes so far beyond normal sports rivalry that the word fan does not even begin to cover what these people were doing. This is not rowdy crowd behavior. This is not passionate home support getting a little too loud outside the arena. What happened over the past several days in New York City is organized, targeted, and genuinely dangerous. And the most disturbing part of this entire story is that the people who were supposed to stop
Dirty me.
nothing. Knicks fans tracked down the Spurs team bus. They found Wembanyama's hotel. They have been outside that hotel for days, stalking his every movement, waiting for moments to confront him in ways that no professional athlete should ever have to deal with when they are simply trying to do their job. These same fans went after anyone wearing a Spurs jersey on the streets of Manhattan, attacking innocent people whose only crime was supporting the visiting team.
All right, so there are concerns growing after things got violent in New York City
Yeah,
after Monday
man.
night's game. Video shows a
Here it
Spurs
is again.
fan getting jumped. New York police say they're now searching for a group of people behind this attack. And you can see that Spurs fan walking down the street when a crowd surrounded him, trying to rip off his jersey.
Spurs fans got jumped, got screamed at, got surrounded by mobs that the NYPD watched form and chose not to dismantle. By the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly how deeply unhinged this Knicks fan base has become. Exactly what they did to the Spurs organization and the people associated with it, and exactly why what happened on the streets of New York City over these past few days is a story that goes far beyond basketball and into territory that law enforcement and the NBA itself are going to have to answer for. Do not go anywhere, because this one is as ugly as it gets. Let us start with what you need to understand about New York Knicks fans before we get into the specific incidents. Because the context matters, and the context is something that the basketball world
What's
has
happening?
been dancing around for
Ace,
years
I
without
see
saying
you,
it
Ace.
correctly.
I see you,
Knicks fans
Ace.
are not like other fans. This is not a criticism dressed up as analysis. It is a documented, historically consistent reality about one of the most passionate and occasionally volatile fan bases in professional sports. Madison Square Garden is the most famous arena in the world, and the people who fill it carry that identity with a weight that manifests differently than fan culture does in other cities. In most NBA markets, fandom is passionate, but it exists within a certain framework of social norms. You cheer for your team, you boo the opposition, you go home. In New York, and specifically in the world of Knicks basketball, fandom is identity. It is tribal in the deepest sense of the word. The Knicks are not just a team that New Yorkers root for. They are a civic institution, a source of cultural pride in a city that measures everything through the lens of being the biggest, the loudest, the most important. For years, for decades really, that identity had nowhere to go. The Knicks were bad, chronically, embarrassingly, sometimes historically bad. The championship drought stretching back to 1973 became a defining feature of the fan base's psychology, the way that prolonged suffering tends to calcify fandom into something harder and more volatile than it would have been if the team had been winning. You do not get the kind of raw, explosive energy that exists in a Knicks crowd in 2026 without 50 plus years of accumulated frustration sitting underneath it. That energy has been building since the last time this city held a trophy. And now, with the Knicks one win away from ending that drought, with the championship literally in sight for the first time in the lives of most of the people in that building, all of that accumulated pressure has been released in ways that have been spectacular and joyful, and in these past few days, genuinely terrifying. The line between passion and violence is a line that crowds cross gradually and then all at once. And in New York City, over the past several days, that line was not just crossed, it was erased. Let us talk about the streets first, because before the bus attack and before the hotel situation, the first signs that something was wrong appeared in the hours and days following Game 3, when the Spurs pulled out a win in Madison Square Garden and the mood in New York shifted from confident to something considerably darker. Knicks fans were furious after Game 3, legitimately furious. They had watched their team blow a lead in a must-win situation, watched Wembanyama score 32 points and impose his will on a game that the Knicks had needed to close out, watched their championship window feel suddenly less certain than it had felt 24 hours earlier. The anger was understandable. The direction that anger took was not. Spurs fans who had come to New York for the finals, people who had bought tickets, booked hotels, traveled to be present for a historic series, started reporting incidents almost immediately after the final buzzer of Game 3. People in Spurs gear being followed out of the arena by groups of Knicks fans. Verbal confrontations that escalated into physical ones. Jerseys being grabbed, Spurs merchandise being destroyed. Reports coming in from multiple neighborhoods across Manhattan of individuals being surrounded, threatened, and in some cases physically assaulted simply because of what team they had chosen to support. These were not organized gang responses or coordinated attacks in the traditional sense. They were the spontaneous combustion of a fan base that had convinced itself, in the fog of championship fever and Game 3 fury, that anyone representing the opposing team was a legitimate target for their frustration. And the people being targeted were not provocateurs. They were not rival fans who had gone looking for a confrontation. or who had been talking trash in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. They were ordinary sports fans trying to get back to their hotels or their cars or the subway after watching a basketball game. What made it worse, what elevated these incidents from unfortunate crowd behavior to something that demands a real institutional response, is what the NYPD did when confronted with these situations. In multiple documented cases, New York City police officers were present when Spurs fans were being harassed and confronted by groups of Knicks supporters, and they did not intervene. They watched. In some cases, body camera footage and witness accounts describe officers smiling at the confrontations, treating the harassment of opposing fans as entertainment rather than as the public safety situation it actually was. The message sent to the people being targeted was clear and devastating. You are on your own out here. The badge on that officer's chest does not protect you tonight, because tonight New York belongs to the Knicks, and you made the mistake of wearing the wrong colors. That is not how law enforcement is supposed to operate. That is not what the badge is supposed to represent. And the fact that it happened repeatedly across multiple incidents, across multiple locations, suggests that it was not individual officers making isolated bad judgment calls. It was a cultural permission structure that said certain things were acceptable tonight that would not be acceptable on a normal night, and people got hurt because of it. Then came the bus. The Spurs team bus has become the most talked about vehicle in New York City over the past 48 hours, and not for any reason that the San Antonio organization would have chosen. What happened to that bus, what a mob of Knicks fans did when they identified it and surrounded it, is the kind of incident that sent security consultants scrambling and league officials reaching for their phones to call emergency meetings. The specifics of what happened have been pieced together from eyewitness accounts, security footage, and reports from people inside the organization. The bus was identified by a group of fans who had apparently been tracking the Spurs' movement patterns, which is itself a disturbing detail that we will come back to. Once identified, the group moved on the bus with a speed and coordination that suggested this was not a spontaneous decision, but something that had been discussed and planned. They surrounded it. They beat on the sides of it. They pressed against the windows. Items were thrown. The noise generated by the mob was described by people inside the vehicle as overwhelming, a wall of sound designed to intimidate and unsettle. The players and staff inside that bus are professional athletes who have dealt with hostile crowds their entire careers. These are people who have been booed in enemy arenas, who have heard the worst chants and the loudest boos and the most creative profanity that sports crowds can generate, and who have learned to process all of it as background noise. This was different. This was not a crowd inside an arena separated from you by rows of seats and security barriers in the formal structure of a competitive event. This was a mob surrounding a vehicle you were inside, with no barrier between their hands and the glass of the windows you were sitting next to. The psychological experience of that situation, regardless of how tough you are or how many playoff games you have played, is genuinely frightening. And the Spurs players and staff had to sit inside it while the bus worked its way out of the situation. The response from law enforcement was, by multiple accounts, slow and insufficient. The kind of police presence that would have dispersed this crowd immediately in a different city or on a different night took time to materialize. And in that time, the mob had accomplished what it set out to accomplish, making the San Antonio Spurs feel unsafe in New York City. But the bus was not even the most targeted, most personal, most deeply unsettling part of what happened to the Spurs in these past few days. That distinction belongs to what happened at Wembanyama's hotel. Victor Wembanyama is 20 years old. He is a basketball player who came to New York City to compete in the NBA Finals and then return home. Whatever you think about his conduct on the court, the flagrant fouls, the trash talk, the moments where his competitive edge has crossed lines, he is a young man doing his job. And what Knicks fans decided to do at his hotel was something that transcends sports rivalry and enters the territory of genuine personal threat. Fans found his hotel, not just found it in the sense of knowing which property the Spurs were staying at. That information circulates and is genuinely difficult to fully conceal for a high-profile team in a major market. They found his specific room. They positioned themselves outside the hotel in shifts, maintaining a presence around the clock, tracking his arrivals and departures, following his movements through the building and in the surrounding blocks. Multiple sources describe scenes of fans pressing against hotel staff for information about his whereabouts, attempting to access areas of the property that guests are not supposed to be able to reach, and making the kind of targeted, persistent effort to locate and confront a specific individual that, outside of the sports context would be immediately recognized as stalking, because that is what it was. Strip away the jerseys and the championship fever and the context of the NBA Finals, and what happened at Wembanyama's hotel was a stalking situation directed at a 20-year-old who had the misfortune of being exceptionally good at basketball and beating the home team in Game 3. The security challenges created by the situation to require the Spurs organization to significantly adjust their protocols, increase the number of security personnel around Wemby specifically, and created an atmosphere of tension and anxiety that no professional athlete should have to navigate while simultaneously preparing for the biggest games of their career. The NBA has rules about this. Teams have security protocols specifically designed to prevent opposing players from being harassed and threatened in their own accommodations. Those rules and protocols exist because situations like this, one, are not unprecedented. Visiting teams in hostile markets have dealt with fan intimidation for as long as professional sports has existed. But the organized, sustained, multi-day nature of what happened at Wembanyama's hotel in New York pushes this into a different category than the usual incidents of fans getting too close and too loud. This was coordinated, this was persistent, and it was directed at a specific identifiable individual with an intensity that should have triggered a much stronger law enforcement response than it received. Let us talk about the broader culture of Knicks fandom that produced this moment, because understanding where it comes from is part of understanding what the league and the city need to address in the aftermath. New York basketball has always occupied a specific place in the American sports landscape. The city's relationship with the Knicks is one of the defining sports stories of the modern era, precisely because of how much the franchise has failed its fan base and how loyally that fan base has stayed anyway. The people filling Madison Square Garden night after night through decades of losing, through embarrassing front office decisions, through coaching changes and player drama and seasons that ended before they really began, those people kept coming back because the Knicks represent something to New York that goes beyond wins and losses. They are the city's team. They carry the weight of New York's identity in a way that no other franchise in any other sport quite manages. That depth of investment is beautiful when it produces the electric atmosphere that MSG is famous for. It is something else entirely when it curdles into the behavior we have been describing the past several days. Enjoy a full meal plus premium chicken bites for just $7. It's the $7 big deal. There are crushes, and then there's this.
Yeah, man. Get back with your dog, man. Real shit, real shit. I ain't gonna tell you no lie at all. We're back. So that's why I was telling you guys, y'all need to hurry, New York. Y'all need to go ahead and hurry up and win this championship, man, so we can get this shit to stop. Cause if it don't stop, y'all gonna give them reasons. Y'all gonna give them real reasons to call them some protocol that we really don't want. Like I was telling y'all before, y'all might can war for about, I give y'all a whole day. They got some shit that they can war motherfucking for weeks and months. You understand me? They got shit they can clear out. They can clear out cities within an hour. You dig what I'm saying? So yeah, man. Straight like that. I just think they need to hurry up and win the championship. So that the Wemby and the Spurs don't have to worry about all this old wild crazy stuff. Damn. I want Knicks to win. I want them to get a championship. But is it worth all of this? To be throwing eggs at people and carrying on like this, man? I feel bad for the Spurs. Yeah, man. Shit sour as hell. Crazy as hell too. At that. Yeah. It'll be alright though. I guess the game coming on tonight, they take the championship in San Antonio and be done with this. And I dare anybody to disagree with this one. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This ain't no bullshit, man. None whatsoever. Let's get it. Let's get it. I am not fooling around, bro. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. That is wild as shit. They stalking Wimby at his own at a hotel. How in the hell? Well, the social media shit, something serious. The internet shit is serious, dude. I mean, crowds of motherfuckers. As soon as you get up, you ain't take a shit yet. They at your door, at your window. Better fight you by a sports game. That's weird to me. That's weird as hell. I am not gonna hold you at all. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Probably nobody want to hear this, but I'm going ahead and speak on it again. It's on my heart. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will be coming better. I'm trying to come better at y'all with this shit. I ain't lying to you. Mm-mm. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. All right, then, everybody. I see that this shit went dry. 1984 forever.